So now we have Martin Reiche aus Berlin with the project Corporeal Narrative Gaming.
That works. Awesome. Watch out. Even that works. Okay. You can hear me, right? Perfect. It seems I have the great pleasure to have the last presentation of the whole conference. So. Okay. And I got here with actually just 3 words. And the first word was corporeal, the second was narrative, and the third one was gaming. And before I explain any of these, I will have to explain something different, which is alternate reality gaming, which is what the workshop was about. So there's a very good definition for alternate reality gaming, and it's actually from Wikipedia, I have to say that. And it says, alternate reality gaming is an interactive networked narrative that uses the real world as a platform and uses transmedia storytelling to deliver a story that may be altered by participants' ideas or actions. And before I talk too much about that, I will just give you a small, let me say hint, a video. Just a second. I guess we can stop that here. So, does that work? Awesome. So this is obviously not my work, but it's kind of summing up what alternate reality gaming is. So it's basically creating another, and here we go, another layer upon reality which is completely scripted, which is completely generated by a narrative. And there has been a lot of work done recently in the last, 12 years, in the fields actually of computer science and arts regarding this kind of alternate reality gaming. And there's been a lot of good projects. This was one of them. This is actually one of the first from 2001. It was called Majestic, and the idea of, they told people they are creating another computer game. What they actually did was they were creating such an alternate reality game. The most important thing is just people are not allowed to know that it's an alternate reality game. Either way, like if they don't know it, they can play it. If they know what it is, it doesn't make sense anymore, because the whole myth about what it could be is gone. However, now I'm going back to what I wanted to talk about. If we think about corporeal narrative and gaming, so I think narrative is pretty easy. It's about story. Gaming, I think we all played games already. Corporeality is somehow the theme of this conference, so I'm pretty much not explaining that anymore. So I'm basing my theories and my ideas for corporeality basically on Merleau-Ponty, on Lynch, who's more an architect but has done a lot on these fields, and actually on everything that I got here as input from the Metabody project. So the second word is narrative, and for narrativity, I pretty much use everything that's ever been written in a narrative way, and the theories of Willem Flusser, who's a pretty important new media or media art theorist, and Steve Banford, who did a lot on trajectory design, which will become very important for creating narratives. And for gaming, it's pretty much the classics, Huizinga and Kalija. All right, so the field of narrative gaming has already been explored. So why am I proposing this? The big thing is corporeal narratives. They have not yet been explored, and this is the field of interest for Metabody. So for us, so the question is, how can we create narratives that are focusing on body, on embodiment? And what I've been creating, or what we've been creating here in this workshop, was a manifesto for the first thing. It's like, I think it's a good way to start a big project, to say, okay, we have to define for ourselves what we mean, what we're doing. So we'll read the manifesto, I guess. That will be fun. Perfect. So I guess the first thing is one of the most important things. Playing the game is a physical experience, so the body is the interface. There we have something like the connection to the Metabody project. Identity can be blurred through narration, so identity in the sense of being a fixed thing does not exist. I think the video that I showed kind of got the idea. The character of a place can be altered through narration, and the character of a space can be altered through narration, which is also a very important point. Then the urban fabric is the gaming environment, meaning everything we do in this game will be played in the urban fabric, in the city. And the urban fabric also is a shared environment, which means that the gaming environment is a shared environment. The player, who doesn't know he is a player, will get the identity that the designer intends. So the player itself, himself or herself, can no longer decide on what he or she wants to do. The player personally is the player, not an avatar. So I'm not playing somebody, I'm playing on my own, I'm playing for myself. And story defines the game. It's getting a bit more complex. The story has no beginning and no end, and there is not one story. And there is not one truth, there is no truth at all. And one important thing here is the player cannot unjoin a game. So the idea of this kind of game, this kind of alternate reality game, is as soon as you started with the game, you will never be able to stop it. Which sounds a bit harsh, but I will come to that later. So the story is revealed to the player step by step, which is also an important point, and the story is creating a new layer of reality. So there you have this alternate reality design idea again. The new layer of reality is at least as real as reality. So this is one thing we already know about fictional things, or about non-real, non-physically real things. For example, if you dream, dreaming is as real as reality, physical reality is, but still it's not happening to you in physical reality. And there's no clear distinction between reality and the game. And which means there exists, what does it say? Uncertainty about reality, which is right. I'm not going through all of that. But one thing is important again. The player will feel a lack of control, and the player will create a secret life by playing the game. So I'm going back to the presentation. There you go. Do you? Thank you. So we have to go to something more concrete, because this was just the manifesto, this was just the outline of what we have to feel when we play this game. So the question, and the really important question is, okay, what is the self-definition? What should this alternate reality game be like? So I'm going back here. Nice. And looking at something more. Okay. You got that? I can close that. Nice. So there's one important thing. We want to be stricter than alternate reality games. So there has been so much research on that field already. And I have to say, maybe I'm more of a conceptual artist, so you've seen so much things here which were very practical, and this is a more theoretical approach, but it is essentially a call to action. And we'll get that later in my presentation. So what we want to have is we want to focus on embodiment of the player through the means of gaming. which means we do not focus on the game, but we focus on the player. So the player is the object of interest, and the player will not be informed about that. So we want to achieve corporeality, we want to achieve embodiment through a game in the means of this game being an alternate reality game. Okay, let me just get to that. Corporeal narrative gaming research questions. So what we want to know is, how can we achieve this embodiment through narration? How can we achieve something like a collective consciousness through alternate realities? Even more, how does corporeality change our understanding and our perception of a narrative? And how does a linear, nonlinear, or rhizomatic, or chaotic, completely chaotic narrative create corporeality? So how can we use storytelling to create this feeling of embodiment, to create this feeling of corporeality? And also, how do we regain the public space, which in itself forms something like a body? And of course, most important, not most important, but also very important at that stage is, how is architecture interfering with our feeling of corporeality? Like, what does the urban fabric have which may feel us embodied or not? And is narration or gaming without corporeality something like a terrorism against the human being? Where we can also argue that is the life that we live right now not somehow a terrorism against the human being? And so we come to something that I find very interesting in that field, which is the terror management theory. So what we want to address is the player's perception, the understanding of self and his own body. So for example, like the occidental distinction between the inside and the outside, the importance of one's own actions, or one's own definition of happiness. So you can also, for example, think of a masochist, right? He's got another definition of happiness, which is not directly bound to physical pleasure. And you have a threat. You have the threat of losing control, which is another kind of occidental myth. And we want to overcome this by pushing the player, pushing the person who never intended to play the game, but somehow forced to play the game. And at the same time, there's no way out, as I already mentioned, which means there's no way to stop the game. So it's kind of an inevitable thing which will happen. And if you want to understand what the player's experience will be, we could use the terror management process, which is like a kind of an idea of social science and psychology. There already are some collaborators working on this project, so it's my research group from Germany, from Berlin and Karlsruhe. Hopefully more people or more here of this Metabody project, especially the people who already took part in the workshop. I appreciate that. Maybe you, like whoever, feels kind of forced now to do something. We also have a few people from Athens who want to take part. They are architects, so they find us something like a different approach to this project. And we want to form working groups because we can pretty much distinguish between four core ideas or core concepts, which is on the one side the code. So it is a technical solution to a problem or to something that we see in our life. At the same time, we have to find a story. We have to find, if we really want to create such a game, and this was what we wanted to do, but this is not possible on 4 days in a workshop, so we can just see what we can manifest for ourselves. Then we need people, or at least one person, to create a story. We need people to work on this idea of corporeality. How can corporeality be achieved by narration? And we need people to just execute these things, to create the game, to maintain the game, and this should be hopefully more than one person. So I might finish that now with one actually one nice sentence in that field is the world already possesses the dream of a time whose consciousness it must now possess in order to actually live it. It's coming from the Situationist International, so which also gets somehow the connection to architecture. And this is a website where we will put the manifesto, where we put more of the ideas that we had. So it's a very, very complex, very conceptual project right now, which also makes it very hard to talk a lot about it, because we talked for 4 days pretty much without any exception about it. And there is a lot already which has been created. There is also a lot which still has to be created. And I would be very happy to find more people who are interested in the idea of how you can achieve embodiment through narration. And I should probably stop here, because we will not have any more time. But I'm very open to questions, and I hope that I somehow got the point of what I wanted to do here. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope we have a few minutes for debate and questions. Please.
Wonderful. What is the difference between this game and the life we are living right now?
I'm sorry?
What is the difference between your game and what we are living right now?
Good question.
I feel somebody invented that, and I am a player. This is my feeling.
This is very. Do you? No, okay. Well, this is a feeling we all might have at some point, or at various points, or maybe our whole lives, that somebody already scripted something for us which just feels very strange. And you have no idea that you're the player. So the idea of this project is basically to do this on our own, which could mean that we could create a story which has properties that we want our real life to have, or we want the real life of other people to have. So this is why also the part of embodiment, of corporeality, is a very important one. Because even if I think that our reality right now might be scripted, then it's scripted in a very, very bad way, in a way which I would define as terrorism against my body, as terrorism against what I see humanity, or being human, is. So for me, the conditio humana, maybe to get more philosophical terms here, for me, the way we live it right now is not the way that I want to see it. So what we have here is a chance to create a game, to create a story, which can have these.
What the controller is for you more terroristic, or the Wii motion or the PlayStation pad with buttons, the accelerometer or the buttons?
Sorry, I don't get that.
I don't in the interface. What kind of interface is more appropriate for these new games, these corporeal games, or the traditional games, okay, video games used pads, control pads, right, like PlayStations, and for me it's more corporeal this pad than the Wii motion, because it connects better for some games to the brain with the fingers, not with something strange.
Okay, I see a question in there. I guess I see the question in how is a completely interfaceless interface, to say it like that, so a completely embodied interface, maybe not less corporeal than a gamepad, because it directly connects your fingers to what you want, and your fingers are connected to your brain. I think that increases, or the problem gets more important when the complexity of the game increases. So you have to see it also in that way that your game controller is not the only interface that you're using. You're also looking at a screen, you're also hearing something. So you have input devices and you have output devices, which all are part of the interface. As more complex the games become, like especially now when you have stereoscopic 3D games where you can just walk around, it's more and more technological effort to build interfaces to do that. And strangely enough, the things don't feel more real. They just feel a bit more, sometimes more abstract, which also can be referred to the uncanny valley, which is a term used from robotics, which means that the more you get into a kind of the more you build a robot that looks and feels human. First of all, it feels more human until one point where it is very close to being human, to looking, feeling human, where people have people feel this should be a human, but it isn't. So they feel something pushes them away. And they made there has been experiments with small children and robots, humanoid robots, and what they found out that. Like they saw that these children sometimes even started crying when they were seeing these robots because they thought they could be human, but they had something very, very strange on them. And what I see is that the more we build interfaces that are designed like specifically for all our senses, the more we go into this uncanny valley of something feeling very, very strange because it's not the way how it should be. It should be completely interfaceless. Our whole life should be the interface to gaming, which would also reconnect us to ourselves a bit more inside of these gaming environments. Any more questions? Well then, thank you. And Jaime, I think you might want to say something as the last here.
Thank you so much. So yeah, well, this is the end, which means it's the beginning. Of course, we already have loads of work preparing the next event for Dresden and preparing online tools for continuous collaboration in the project. So you can't imagine the agenda I have for the coming weeks. Luckily, I will be away, so I have to postpone it. So this is going on continuously. It just started this week. Entonces, esto no ha hecho más que empezar. So we are looking already, we're thinking about next year, we're thinking about what we can make better next year than this year. This year it was all done very quickly. We hope to do things with much more time and think about everything and have more feedback from everybody during the process. For next year in Madrid, and in between we have Dresden and possibly Genova and other events and things happening with the Metabody project, and hopefully in connection with other things as well. So thank all of you for being here.